Hello guys, welcome back to the Try Time Podcast. I'm Callum and this is episode 83. Yes, as you can see, I am on my own today. It's another one of them scheduling conflicts, not both available to record at the same time. So I'm jumping on and getting this one done this week. And yet there's quite a lot, to be fair, to get through between, Super League semi-final results and previewing the grand final. There's similar stuff with the playoffs in Championship and League One. There's all of the awards from that came out last night, your Man of Steels and all throughout the divisions. And then you've got some weird and wacky transfer news as well, as there always is. So obviously we've got to start off with Super League, and we're going to start off with the playoffs and how the semi-finals went. And yeah, it were interesting. I mean, we'll start with actually reverse order. We're going to start with Saturday, because I feel like there's not as much to speak about this game. So Wigan 38, Lee 0. I want to say expected, but people probably didn't expect Wigan to put this much of a number on Lee. Obviously, Lee were missing players like missing Charnley and things like that. And it always did seem like a step too far for them to get to the grand final this time round. But, I mean, it's one of them. Wigan look as good as they've looked pretty much all season, to be fair. Bevan, French, Jaifield, like both absolutely incredible and in top form, which is what Wigan need them to be for them to go on and win the grand final. And I think, obviously, we'll come on to the other semi-final in a bit, but I think based on this game, I think is what puts Wigan as overwhelming favourites for the final, regardless of who they would have been playing. Your strike players are in form. Everything seems to be coming up good for them at the right time. And yeah, I think fair play. I mean, fair play to Lee as well. Just some comments on them. I think, like I say, it's probably as far as they could have expected to come. I think at their current stage, I don't think they could be expecting to get to a grand final. And, the fact that only a month or so ago, there was probably not even likely to get in the playoffs at all. And the fact that they've actually got to a semi-final is credit to them. Credit to the players, credit to the coaching staff, credit to Derek Beaumont as well for sort of the money he keeps ploughing in. And, a lot of the good stuff that he's doing for the game. I know it's not everyone's cup of tea, but you can't deny that what he's doing for the game is a positive. And if we had more people like him in the game would be more successful. That's just a fact, in my opinion, anyway. So, yeah, I guess that's it for that one. Wigan sweep Lee aside. Kind of a bit disappointing Lee didn't get any points on the board, but that's just how good Wigan are really, which we'll come on to when we're previewing the grand final as well. So now to Friday night. Now, this were an interesting one because talk about a game of two halves, by the way. But I mean, first of all, if you would have said, even before this match, but like at the start of the year, when Ulker had all the troubles with the goal kicking, that was the only thing wrong, the goal kicking shit, that a game would come down to a goal kick, which team would lose, you would not have thought KR would be coming out on the good side of that result. But they have done. Absolutely fair play to them, to be fair. I mean, they only kicked one out of the two, and the one that they kicked, that's the controversial talking point is, was it a try? Was it not a try? It's one of them, really. It's really up for debate. There's no definitive answer. There's no one out there who's ever going to find the correct answer. Because even Joe Burgess didn't know if it were a try or not. He's obviously going to celebrate it and take the try, and Warrington are obviously going to complain about it. And yeah, it's a tricky one, and it does pose a lot of questions about referees and the video referee in particular, and whether we should be sending them up as tries, no tries, and who should get the benefit of the doubt. Should it be the attacking team? Should it be the defending team? And a lot of, because at the end of the day, the referee has not seen that ball go down, so should he be sending it up as a try and things like that? There's a lot, and I'm not necessarily blaming the referee. I'm thinking it's more the rules don't protect the referees in terms of this enough, and for it to happen in a big game like this is disappointing. But at the end of the day, Warrington did enough to get back into it. Both teams scored 2 tries in this game. Warrington just missed both kicks, which is, I mean, there was out on the touchline. I would not have expected Fulis to kick either of them. There's no guarantee with kicks from the touchline. It's not like he missed a sitter. But obviously that is disappointing, especially because if you just kicked that last one, we'd have had, a good 10, 15 minutes of going for drop goals. If not, then it's another golden point, which would have been exciting. But in the end, KR managed the game out well in the end, to be fair, because Warrington were rolling at one point. And KR kind of got a bit of control back and saw the game out, which is what they've been known for doing all season, really. I mean, that wasn't a surprise. I guess the thing about this game is everyone knew it was going to be a tight affair. My only worry with this, I guess, for KR going forward is if you are only narrowly beating Warrington when you've just seen Wigan absolutely demolish Lee, it doesn't put you in the best stead, I don't think, ahead of the grand final. Like, Wigan are a better team than Warrington are. They're going to pose more attacking questions, and they're not going to be as open defensively as Warrington were at times in that first half for KR to punish them. And honestly, I think KR could struggle with that. KR need to make it a bit of a dogfight, but all it takes is Wigan to score a couple of tries, and they could be out of sight. That's the thing. It's going to be a good game. I'm looking forward to it, but KR definitely don't go into this as favourites. And I mean, I'll close on Warrington as well, because that's a very successful season for Warrington and Sam Burgess. Finishing third, they definitely will have targeted a sort of top 3, top 4 finish, definitely, which they've got. They've been competitive in a semi-final. At the end of the day, they've only missed out on goal kicks. Fans can't really be upset about that. You could look at it as, right, we know now where we need to develop going forward, and I think this Warrington team is only going to get better. With Burgess's recruitment, it's only going to build up a team where I can see, honestly, my prediction would be Warrington win a grand final in the next 3 years. If they keep this core, keep Burgess, and just keep building on top of that, they're a club on the up at the end of the day, and I could easily see them winning a grand final in the next couple of years. So I definitely don't think it's doom and gloom for Warrington. Who will be disappointed for not getting there, because at points in that game, KR were there for the taking, and different sort of bounce of the ball, different swing of the wind on the kicks, and they'd have been there. But at the end of the day, it's not the end of the world for Warrington. They'll have their time again to get finally make it their year, I guess, as the joke goes on. But now I guess I should actually preview the grand final, because I mean, it's an interesting one, and I do mention this at points on the podcast, because as me as a Bradford fan, like, I should want Wigan to win this, because the fact that only 4 teams have won Super League is the only thing keeping Bradford relevant at the minute, because every time grand final comes around, there's only ever been 4 teams that won it, and one of them hasn't been in Super League for over 10 years, which is obviously Bradford. So in that sense, I think I would want Wigan to win. In a sense of for what's good for the game going forward, I think if KR can upset Wigan here, that is big for the game, and big for a lot of things anyway. Because like, people forget KR was in the Championship in 2017. That's not that long ago. Do you know what I mean? Like, KR have had their time down there and come up. Like, if you're a Wakey fan, you're hoping KR win, because they're setting the blueprint for you of what you need to do. And I would argue the Wakey team that's coming up to Super League, and like the team they've got for next year, is better than the KR team the year that they came up. But that's by the by, is that. But yeah, I think if KR can cause an upset here, it will be good for the game, because I think teams will be more hopeful, and sort of teams will not try and just buy their way to a title, which we've seen teams do in the past. Is like, right, well, there's only chance of winning is to just spend more money than everyone else. KR have proved that's not the case. Don't get me wrong. They ain't spent nothing. Like, they've spent money, and but it's about smart recruitment and a project with a coach which you've got to build up over a couple of years. Warrington are doing that now. Don't get me wrong, Warrington are probably spending more money as well doing it. But with Burgess, they're building up to this, just like KR have done to get to this point. Do I think they will win? No. My prediction would be Wigan. I think could see a close first half. Wigan run away with it in the second. But if KR can keep it tight, and obviously the thing with KR is they've got Michael Lewis, they've got their own strike weapon. Can he make the magic happen is the question. Personally, I think I could see him scoring an absolute wonder try, like similar to like a Rob Burrow try back in the day. But I don't think it'll be enough. I think Wigan do it. If I'm going to give a score prediction here, and if this is right, I'm going to come back to this and clip it next week. Oh, what do I go with here? I'm going to say 24-10, with halftime score being something around maybe like 12-10 to Wigan. 12-10 to Wigan halftime. Wigan run away with it second half. Get another 2. Not run away with it, they just got 2 tries. And when Wigan have got you at arm's length, you're always going to struggle to fight back from that, I think. So you've got to take the game to them early doors and keep it tight. Which okay, I can do, like I've said, but I do think Wigan will win. Either way, great season from KR. No one predicted them get to grand final, so absolutely fair play to them on that. And now I guess, should we, before we do awards, we're going to go over a sign which I wish Matt were here to give his thoughts on. He will be here next week to do that, don't worry. Is the Jake Connor situation. Now, you got Jake Connor officially signed this morning, which were announced at a weird early time in the morning, what signings get announced in the morning anyway? But, Leeds have already signed over the last week or so these players over from Australia, a couple of forwards, which is what they needed. And if they stick, the great signings. If they don't, they don't. It's one of them. They won't be on big money, but they are quota players. I think some Leeds fans expect him to bring in some bigger names than that, but players like this can make a name for himself in Super League, don't get me wrong. But Jake Connor, we all know him. I'm a fan. I think Matt's a fan as well, to be fair, but I know some people absolutely hate him and think he's a terrible rugby player. On his day, he can be the best player on the pitch. His decision making and I don't know what you'd call it. He's just a bit too off the cuff sometimes, and he also is a personality. I think Brad Arthur is the absolute perfect man for him because he's not going to take any shit, but also I think he's going to allow him to play. I think I liken it to sort of how Sean Wynn, which ironically Sean Wynn will not have Jake Connor anywhere near his teams, but the video that always goes around of Sean Wynn and Harry Newman, and he's sort of speaking to him like, just play your game, do this, and sort of, because Harry Newman's also been known for this sort of off-field and attitude and discipline, not necessarily disciplinary, but the attitude issues and not wanting to play for Leeds at times, it seems. I think Arthur's going to be good for both of them, and I think the issue is if you've got a centre, because Momorowski's, the talks are he's going home. If you've got a centre partnership of Connor and Newman, that can be very volatile. On the day, they can be world beaters, and on other days, they can be terrible. But I think, like I say, Arthur's the right man for him. And I like Jake Connor. I think he's the sort of personality you need around the sport. It's about concentrating that. Look at Jack Wellesby, Michael Lewis, perfect examples of players who, if they're playing against you, you absolutely hate them. And I'm assuming players on pitch who are playing against them absolutely hate them. But they back up the cockiness, they back up their sort of, not like shithousery that they have. They back that up by being the best players on the pitch most of the time when they're playing. That's how they back it up. They're that good that it's fine and it's acceptable. Connor at times backs it up like that, but doesn't always. And I think if this season for Leeds, and I think a new environment, he can't just keep bouncing between Hull FC and Huddersfield, can he? He needs that new environment. And I think Leeds can be that for him. I mean, the only issue with him at Leeds is there's going to be extra media attention because it's Leeds. It's one of the bigger clubs, one of the top 3 clubs in the country. There's expectation from fans after 2 disappointing seasons. They could be on his back early doors if he doesn't start strong. On the other side of that, it could completely flip. And if he's helping them be good and be in the playoffs again, fans are going to love him. So I think it's one of them for Connor. I think it's a challenge for him, but a change of environment that he probably needs. And don't get me wrong, I know people think Leeds and Everton's recruitment can be questionable at times, but they'll have a plan for Connor. And you've got Arthur there, you've got and Blease there as well. They've got to have a bit of trust in what's going on there. And I think it's an exciting player. Is Jake Connor, like seeing Jake Connor at Headingley on your team could be a good thing. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, Leeds fans, be optimistic. I don't know how Matt's feeling about it. To be fair, I think he said that he wouldn't mind it because it meant Momorowski would go. To be fair, which is what it is, I guess. But yeah, that is. I don't think I've ever actually spoke this much without stopping, to be honest. But because usually Matt's leading these anyway. But yeah, good signing for Leeds, in my opinion. Yeah, exciting for 2025. Bloody 2025. God, Christ. Time's flying, isn't it? Let's be honest. Right. Now we'll close Super League off ahead of the big one. Well, actually, at Old Trafford till 2027 as well, which me and Matt, many moons ago, it seemed like, at the start of the season, did a podcast on where we think the grand final and the other big events like Magic Weekend should be held. And I think I went through on a bit of a rant arguing why it shouldn't be at Old Trafford, and then came to the conclusion that it should be. So I have no problems with this. I think the Old Trafford as a staple point of, just a flash word, Old Trafford, it's got the big feel of it because it's been where the grand final's been. Oh, you got to get to Old Trafford. If it were a different stadium, you wouldn't be able to say, oh, get to that stadium. You'd have to say to the grand final. Do you know what I mean? So it's like the road to Old Trafford is essentially what it is. And I think that works. And obviously this year, it's going to be a big attendance this year. I mean, it's pretty much sold out as far as I'm aware. So it should really be a big occasion. And I don't see why it can't be at Old Trafford going forward, really. I know the stadium's kind of falling a bit, but at the end of the day, that might make it a little bit cheaper, let's be honest. And it's all about the money, isn't it? So, right, awards then. So let's see how many of these are questionable. I don't think there's many, really. So, Coach of the Year, Willie Peters. Expected, really. I think when we saw the nominations, there were probably not many complaints, really, outside of Sam Burgess probably should have been in there, maybe over Mike Eccles finishing bottom. But I get why they've done it completely. And it's one of them where Willie Peters were always going to win it for me. I mean, Pete's up there as well, though, but I think the big thing about Pete is he's transcended just Super League. Like, he's won the World Club Challenge, he's won the Challenge Cup. Should that count within him winning the Super League sort of Coach of the Year? If it was like the RFL, I know was actually the RFL Awards, but do you know what I mean? If it wasn't just for Super League before the full sort of year, then I think he would have won it. But I think, yeah, give it to Peters. I mean, at the end of the day, no one thought KR were going to finish second. Everyone thought maybe top four, definitely playoffs. But to finish top two in the manner that he did, where he actually pushed Wigan all the way towards the last sort of game week, fair play, to be fair. And then now, obviously, which I don't know how much the playoffs and stuff come into this. I'll kind of go into that actually when we get down into League One to speak about that. I don't know how much the playoffs and post the regular season actually matters to these awards, but obviously Peters has also got to a final. If he'd have lost last week to Warrington, would he still have won it? Because people would then have said, oh, well, Burgess wasn't even nominated and Burgess beat him in the semi-final, yada, yada. But, yeah, Peters won it, and I've got no complaints with Peters. I think he's sort of a great coach. And, yeah, he's really sorted KR out, hasn't he, really, to be fair. And now we've got the most obvious one, the Young Player of the Year, which I think me and Matt I don't know if it was actually on the podcast or just us personally were saying about it when the nominations came out, and some Saints fans were saying, oh, Delaney should win it and things like that. And it was like Ensemble was, and Nicholson's great as well, but Ensemble was the only player out of the three that was in the dream team. So if he hadn't have won it, what farce is the dream team? Because to get into the dream team, you've got to be that good. Do you know what I mean? It's just an absolute farce with that whole thing. If Ensemble hadn't won it, but yeah, Ensemble, which again, I've always liked Ensemble. Like when I've seen him in glimpses for Wigan before this season, did not expect him to have the season he has and break into that team as he has either, especially with the actual power of that pack that they've got as well. But what a player he is, and hopefully he gets some minutes for England against Samoa as well, because honestly, I think he really deserves it, and it'll be good to see him. He's the sort of player that when you're looking at World Cups in the future, he's got to feature and he's got to be on his game. So I think winning awards like this, playing for Wigan in big games, playing for, in grand finals and things like that at such a young age is only going to be beneficial for him. Chuck him in for England against Samoa. Don't get me wrong, I know he's had a long season, and if he doesn't, I'm not expecting him to play both games or anything like that, but I think give him some minutes definitely. And yeah, Junior and Sember, very well deserved. And now we've got the Man of Steel. Now, me and Matt both said Mikey Lewis. Don't get me wrong, Sneed's been great, and we love Sneed as well, and Dufty's had a really good season, don't get me wrong. It just had to be Mikey Lewis, really. It had to be, and I think we even called it at the start of the season as well, like based on how he ended last season and played for England when he was picked in that Tonga series. He was on the form of his life, and he's only such a young lad as well. I would be shocked if he don't end up in the NRL at some point, because what a player he actually is. He's been a big part of why KR have got to where they have got. He's going to be, if KR do anything at the weekend in the grand final, Lewis will be one of the main causes as to why. If Lewis has a good game at the weekend, they've got every chance. If Lewis has a bad game, they'll struggle to do anything. He is so integral to how they play. And it's interesting, Mikey Lewis, we could probably do a whole podcast or at least a video on a Saturday about the rise of Mikey Lewis. I remember Mikey Lewis down at York on loan and stuff like that. And he always seemed to just struggle to get into that KR team. And that when they were a lot worse than they are now as well. But now he's come on, he's bulked up as well. He's bulked up as a player. He always had the speed and the quick feet. He's bulked up now. He looks a man. He looks a player. And he's done absolutely great this season. And he deserves it, to be fair. He deserves the Man of Steel. Don't get me wrong. I know there's been a lot of people saying about, Bevan French and the clip of the amazing try he scored, by the way, at the weekend, and saying, how he's the best player of Super League for probably the last 10 years. How can he not be the man of steel? He's the best player in the league. But I understand where people are coming from with that. But the award he's not played enough games to warrant that. And there's nothing wrong with giving it to Mikey Lewis, because if it went on who is the best player in the league, regardless of if they've actually been injured all season or played, then you just probably got Bevan French for about 3-4 years in a row, which no one really wants that, do they, to be fair. So, yeah, I think that actually rounds up Super League, to be fair. There's some other little bits of news that's always coming out, but I think a lot of transfer stuff will now come out probably more after the grand finals, to be fair. So I guess now we'll probably move down to the Championship, which is my neck of the woods. Don't get me wrong, and I've had a good week. As a Bradford fan. But on this, I'm going to reverse it. I'm going to start with awards in Championship, because I think they're pretty easy to go over, because it's just a Wakefield sweep, which I disagree with, by the way. Like, I actually think they've got all 3 awards wrong in this. So we'll start with Coach at Year, Darryl Powell. Right, so I'm not a hater of Darryl Powell. Matt is a bit more than me, because he worked cast and stuff. But for me, Darryl Powell's fine. He's a good coach, and him at Wakefield, it seems to work, and keeping him for next year in Super League will work. Do I think Wakefield will win anything with Powell there in terms of winning like a grand final or anything? No, I think they'll need to probably get someone else in if they want to sort of achieve like what KR are currently doing. But I think you look at the nominees, really. I think you've got Powell with a full-time team. You've got Hule was up there with, obviously, a full-time team in Toulouse, even though they're not really kind of not even a full-time team anymore, really. I don't class them as that necessarily. But realistically, that's what they've got to call themselves. And then you've got Mark Applegarth, who's taken a team when he came in, who was in the bottom like 4 of the table, and he's taken a 4th place. And whether or not playoffs matter in this, he's also taken them to a playoff semi-final. For me, Applegarth's pound for pound the best coach in the league by a fucking country mile. And I'm a Bradford fan. I'm not even putting O'Carroll in that, and we finished 3rd. Do you know what I mean? I think Applegarth is great, especially because of the way he obviously it ended with Wakey last year wasn't good, but that team and the whole club as a whole then was just toxic as anything. So I don't blame him for any of that. But yeah, why has Powell won this? I know they've only lost 1 game all season, but I genuinely think with that Wakey team, I could have coached them to fucking only losing 1 game. That's it. I'm not like that's an over exaggeration. Don't get me wrong, but I think the 3 awards going where they have makes a mockery of the league, in my opinion, because Powell is not the best coach in the league. That's it. I know this is my opinion, but with the team he has, he should have gone unbeaten in the league, I would argue. Then if you're going to say that, I don't think the success is down to him mostly. Whereas look at the team that Applegarth's got to 4th. He should be. And I'd love nothing more. We're going to come to this. I would love nothing more, and I don't even have that out against Wakey, than York doing Wakey at weekend. It's not likely to happen, but how good would that be? And how much would that piss off these pricks who've picked this? Because Coach at Year should not be Darryl Powell. And I know the Super League ones all voted for by the other coaches. I don't know if the Championship one is, but if it is, I'm very surprised, because who's voted for Powell? Who out of the coaches would have voted for Powell? I just don't understand it. You probably would have voted for Applegarth or I mean, I wouldn't even mind Hule. I think Toulouse hadn't had that good of a season, so I wouldn't necessarily have gone with that. But yeah, just weird to me. I'd even potentially gone, further down the league, or things like that. That teams that have stayed up that you wouldn't expect to stay up would be more valued over what Powell's done. But that's run over. Now we go young player of the year, Oliver Pratt, who I've not got anything against Oliver Pratt, right? But realistically, he probably won't play for Wakey. I would be very surprised if he actually plays for Wakey next year in Super League, because in the games I've seen him, which don't get me wrong, there's not been many outside of the 3 games they've played against Bradford. He has not been that good against Bradford. Defensively, he's probably been one of the worst players on pitch in terms of. I do not defensively think he's good. I personally, I think Myers should have won it. As a Bradford fan, I know that people are saying that, but I think for this award, right, so you're going to give it to Oliver Pratt, who's going up with Wakey. They've already signed like Cam Scott, so I don't actually think he'll play. So does he end up just, what does this award do for him? Whereas you got a player like Jaden Myers, who's again another young centre whose record's amazing. He's been one of Bradford's most consistent players all season. And Bradford are a part-time team. Remember that. Oliver Pratt's a full-time player in that league, and he has not been the difference that he should be better than Myers. So for me, it should be Myers because that gives him some. So if you're a Super League club looking for a young centre coming through, you've got Oliver Pratt, who's already in a full-time team, who's already in Super League as well. Or you can, who's maybe a bit of a cheaper option. Or we've got this part-time young player who plays for Bradford in Championship, just won Championship Young Player at Year. Great prospect. Go for him. And I don't want him, Myers. So in the hindsight, I'm not even that bothered because it means Myers is probably not going to get poached this year. But yeah, I just don't agree with it. Player of the year. This is not an anti-Wakey rant because I don't agree with the player of the year, but that's because it's Kai Rodwell. Kai Rodwell is Wakefield's best player by a country fucking mile. You know how much Wakefield don't rate Jowett? They've fucking already replaced him for next year. Like, don't get me wrong, Jowett probably will wear number one, and he'll probably he'll start the season as the fullback, but Rourke, in my opinion, Rourke is better. And I could see Rourke dislodging Jowett personally. It should have been Rodwell though this year. Rodwell is pound for pound the best, easily the best player in the Championship. If you're good, and that's the one thing I get. It had to be a Wakey player, really. I'm not saying none of these should have been Wakey, but I think Rodwell deserved it, to be fair, and should have got it. But that's my rant on. I'm not going on forever on this. This is going to be longer than the usual pod when there's two of us in. It's just me. So, result time from the Championship. We've already said about York, and obviously everyone knows about what happened anyway. But York 27, Widnes 10. Close game first half. York ran away with it in the second. Good game. Good sort of advert for the Championship. Surprised Widnes didn't put more of a fight, but that's testament to how good York actually are, to be fair. And again, Applegarth, great stuff. So I think good season for Widnes, though. They needed a year like this where they're getting back in the playoff picture after a couple of years disappointing. They've got back in there, finishing fifth as well, which is very respectable amongst the teams that are around them. And I think they're a team that are building and getting better every year. So yeah, I don't think any issues with Widnes. For York, it's a step further than they went last year. Last year, they finished sixth, lost in the first round of the playoffs this year, finishing fourth and got to the semi. I can't imagine them beating Wakefield, but we'll come to that when we're previewing the two semi-finals. Now going to the other playoff game from the weekend, which was an absolute cracker. Not really, to be fair. I would not call it a cracker. I mean, unless you're a Bradford fan like I am, then it's a cracker. Bradford 25, Featherstone 12. Now, this was a game where it's probably the best Bradford performance all season, especially for 75 minutes. We were great. I think patient, didn't force anything, which we have done in the past. Got us tries when they were there to be taken. You know, we did bomb a load of chances in first half. I'm not going to lie. This could have been a massive score. And Fev just looked they lacked a bit of intensity. They lacked that bit of something that Fev have had over the years. They've always had some where they're in games and they've got like a bit of a prick about them. They're a bit like, do you know what I mean? They're a bit rough in tackles and they just didn't have the intensity. Bradford out pricked them, I guess is a way that you want to say it. Like they out battled them, did Bradford, and it was really good to see because Fev are a team who've bullied Bradford over the years. And it was good to see the sort of tides turning. Don't get me wrong, Bradford were big favourites for this. Fev scraped into sixth and barely really even deserved that. To be fair, they were lucky that Sheffield lost to Dewsbury. In terms of, I mean, up until, like I say, 75th minute, I was like, it's 25-0. What a performance. Last 5 minutes, Bradford sort of new game were won and has sort of fell asleep. 2 tries for Fev. It was too little too late anyway, but kind of put a bit of a dampener on the win. But I think as a Bradford fan, I've got to be hopeful going into next week away to Toulouse. We're nowhere near the favourites for that, but there's no reason why we can't give them a game and try and go one set further than we did last year. And I guess that brings me on to actually previewing the playoff games, which we've got both, I believe. Yeah, both are. Oh, God, that's a weird representation because it's just shown the League One, the Swinton Hunslet game in the Championship on this, which is weird. But yeah, so we've got both One's at 3 o'clock, one's at 4 o'clock. So we've got Wakefield against York at 3 o'clock on a Sunday. Nothing wrong with the timing or anything like that or the arrangement. I'll come on to the Toulouse game afterwards. But yeah, I think Wakefield will win it. I would love nothing more than York to win it, obviously, because that gives Bradford a better chance of winning the grand final if we do beat Toulouse, etc. But I can't see anything other than a Wakey win. I think York will make it close first half. Wakey run away with it, probably something like 42-12, something like that, I think. But again, that's a successful season for York as well. Toulouse against Bradford. Obviously, last year Toulouse beating Bradford at this stage. Weirdly, this is the only Toulouse game not going on a Saturday. It's on a Sunday afternoon. It's just weird. Doesn't really help the Bradford fans getting over there. What does help the Bradford players is the fact that the weather's not going to be that hot. Could be a bit of an equaliser. Bradford are on good form. Play like they did against Fev with the sort of Bradford have kind of managed to get pretty much everyone fit at the right time here, which is good. That pack that Bradford have got out is great for this level. It probably beats the Toulouse pack as well. I think it's just everything's got to click for it to work for Bradford. But these teams are closer than they were last year. And I'm confident Bradford can potentially do something here. I'm not going to be there, sadly. But yeah, I think it'll be a cracker. And it's one of them games where it's not even being televised. You televise them two games, put one at 3, one at 5:30, right? And just have it televised on whatever you want to televise it on. Put it for free on YouTube. People watch it because people you're going to have all grand final and stuff on Saturday. People want to watch stuff like this. They do. People want to watch playoff rugby. The amount of neutral fans I saw at Hunslet in that were for a first round playoff match. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, definitely think they need to do more to televise these, but yeah. So my prediction is I've got to back. God, look at that! I'm losing my voice. I've got to back the Bradford. I've got to back my team, and I'll back Wakey. So I'll say Wakey Bradford final. Obviously over at Wakey. So now we will move on to League One, and we'll do the awards first. We'll whiz through these, to be fair. Coach of the Year, Mark Dunning. I agree. Completely agree. Mark Dunning deserved it for what he's done at Midlands and got them a 5th place finish. Is great. I have seen people complaining on Twitter that the Hunslet coach has not got that. Hunslet finished 4th, only just above Midlands. Hunslet lost in the first round of the playoffs, right? And then had to beat Midlands to stay in. Only just beat Midlands, scraping past them. And then don't get me wrong, the last 2 weeks after that, fucking amazing from Hunslet. They beat Rochdale and Keighley. No one expected it. We'll come on to the Keighley game later on. But it's got to be done in because you finish 4th and then you've had. If this is what I mean, do the playoffs count towards this? I don't think they do based on this anyway. Because if Hunslet go and do that, then he probably deserves it for the run, or the team deserves some sort of award or something, I guess. But it just had to be done in with what he's done with the facilities and the sort of players and team he's got. It deserves to be him, and fair play to him. He's a good lad. Young player of the year, Phoenix Lalo Tagaga. PLT then. We'll go PLT. His dad will call QLT. We're calling him PLT. At Oldham, yeah, fair. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to say that I watch a load of League One. It's the league that I watch the least out of these 3. But whenever I watched Oldham, he's good. And we know he's good anyway. He's always been a good player. So I get that completely. The player of the year being Lewis Ellis from Rochdale. Surprised this isn't an Oldham boy because of how it's just completely the barnstormed the league this year. But yeah, I don't have any arguments or anything really to say about this. When I've watched Rochdale, Lewis Ellis has been good. That's all I can say. So yeah, I guess now we'll go on to reviewing the weird system. And we know what we speak about every week. The system is weird. So we had Keighley against Hunslet in the playoff. What would traditionally have been the playoff final? If we'd have had last year's system, the winner of this would get a championship spot. With obviously we know Dewsbury and Whitehaven have come down. They would have gone up, and that'd be 2 up, 2 down. And in this scenario, Hunslet would have gone up with Oldham, which would have been exciting actually, getting Hunslet back in the championship for a good few years. First time in a good few years. No one saw this coming. No, Keighley were big favourites for this game. And to lose at home 20 points to 6, it makes me question, did kind of Keighley from when Keighley finished the season, they had a week off, then a game, then a week off, then a game. And in a part-time environment, I actually think that can negatively affect a team. especially at this stage of a season where you've got Hunslet who've played every single week for that and they've just got better every week of playing. And then they've come and they've absolutely just served it up to Keighley, which Keighley don't get done much at home. But obviously fair play to Keighley for doing this, for Hunslet for doing this. But great try from Jack Render in the corner as well, which basically sealed the win. But yeah, Hunslet beating Keighley. Shock, 20.6. Hunslet now go on to the actual decider of who gets the promotion, and they've got to play against a Swinton team who I've just said it doesn't help not playing for a couple of weeks. Swinton obviously missed a week as well. So maybe I could see Hunslet winning this. I really hope they do. I think it's be a great occasion for the club. I mean, you know, a few weeks ago they looked down and out, only just beating bloody Midlands, and now they're I've got a situation where they can get in the championship, which is only going to be a 13-team championship, so it's even more impressive, really, that they've now got to beat Swinton. And you know, I've seen a lot of people saying, why didn't they just say the bottom three in the championship went down and the League One winner and the playoff winner went up? I get why they haven't done that, because there already is a bit of a gap in terms of quality between the leagues, and I think doing that would have potentially made the championship worse. But if Hunslet beat Swinton, that'd prove that theory completely wrong. The only weird thing I've got about this game is that it's at 7:30 on a Sunday night. 7:30 on a Sunday. Why? Swinton's not a million miles away from Old Trafford. I would personally have thought get it on maybe an earlier kickoff than now, maybe a 12:30, 1 o'clock kickoff. Get it on. I'd say 12:30 kickoff, so it's before the championship game, so people can watch it. Get it streamed, which I think it probably is going to be on Sportsman anyway. And then you've got some people advertise it. Oh, you've stayed over in Manchester after the grand final. Why not ship over to Swinton, not too far away, to watch Swinton against Hunslet in this? You'd have got a packed house. It'd have been great. But they don't think like that. Now you've got part-time players who are up early for work on Monday morning, having to play rugby at 7:30 on a fucking Sunday night in what's biggest game of all of their seasons for every player on that pitch. It's just not ideal, but I'll go into previewing the game anyway. Do I think Hunslet will win? I'm going to go Swinton narrowly win, because Swinton at home are really good. Even though they've been shit towards back end of the season, I do think Swinton will just get over the line, which is sad for Hunslet, because it'd have been nice to have a new sort of different team in the championship going forward. Otherwise, it's just a bit boring, isn't it, going to Swinton every year? But yeah, I guess that's League One. That's been the championship. That's been Super League. That's been everything. And that has been, you know, over 35 minutes of me non-stop talking to you. So I hope you appreciate that, because it's harder to do when you're on your own and you think. But yeah, I think that's been good. It's been good fun. Let me know down below, or in any comments, anything, who you think is going to win the grand final, who you think is going to progress through all the other playoffs and the old systems. What do you think of Jake Connor? What do you think of the awards? Let me know down below. Subscribe on YouTube if you haven't already, and follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all that. And yeah, if you've made it this far, thank you. And yeah, we'll see you later.